Have to make sure we stay on the beat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, soft and sexy.
Soft and sexy. Serve it. And syncopate it.
Syncopate it, indeed.
Just start it.
Hi, everybody. TuneX podcast episode 7, is it? Or is it? It's either 7 or 8. Well, you should know by looking at the download thingy, or the streamy thingy. It'll tell you right there. So whatever episode it is, this is it. Anyway, I'm Sean, and with me, as usual, is...
Lisa.
But anyway, we kind of said we were going to have a special guest if all actually worked out properly. And believe it or not, all worked out properly. That never happens in the world of podcasting. So special guest, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm special guest Carrie.
Special guest Carrie. And just so we can have kind of a calibration on why we have Carrie on a Beach Boys podcast, just so you know she knows what she's talking about. We don't just grab random people off the street. I'm going to ask you something. When you go out performing, there's a song that you do, a cover that you do, that one time when you were singing it, your husband turned to me and said, every time Carrie does this song, Murray Wilson gets 5 minutes shaved off his hell sentence. What song would that be?
That would be I Live for the Sun by the Sun Rays.
It would indeed be. So there we go. Now, there's a reason that we asked Carrie to join us, and thank you for joining us, by the way.
I'm so glad to be here.
The reason is because it is the 45th anniversary of the release of that landmark album, The Beach Boys Love You. So what does that have to do with Carrie? Well, what does it have to do with any of us?
So I will start off by saying that I don't care much for the Beach Boys Love You album. My father bought the 8-track of it back in probably 1977 or 78, listened to it once and probably never touched it ever again. So it's something I've always been aware of, but never cared much for it. But last summer, when SiriusXM did their Beach Boys channel, as they occasionally do, I heard a lot of Love You songs. I mean, I'm not going to change the station. There's a few Beach Boys songs that I will change the station for, such as Hey Little Tomboy.
I was there the moment you first heard that song, and trust me, it was not a pretty sight.
That is the stuff of legends.
But I mean, the Love You stuff I can deal with. And in listening to some of these things, it got me to thinking. Oftentimes, when you're a Beach Boys fan and you look at the vastness of their career and the many mistakes that they've made or missed opportunities, you kind of think, well, what if? What if they did things differently? And I don't remember exactly how this came together in my head, but I started thinking, what if instead of putting Love You out as its own album, because you got to admit, it's a Brian Wilson album, much more than a Beach Boys album. In fact, the album was originally supposed to be called Brian Loves You. I don't know why it ended up being the Beach. Probably because the Beach Boys wanted to make sure their name got on it.
Well, yeah.
But it's pretty much Brian's show. And the album, I mean, whether you love it or hate it, you got to admit, it's very Brian.
Now, speaking of love or hate, I noticed that you gave only those two options. And I always believed that you either love the Beach Boys Love You or you hate it. Do either of you disagree with me?
I disagree.
Really? Okay.
I do. And I know that's a really popular fandom opinion, but for me, it's okay.
Well, that would be 15 big ones, actually.
Sorry. I see what you did there.
Womp womp.
So I started thinking, what if instead of this album coming out as it did, with some songs that might be a little squicky and kind of weird and whatever, what if the album had been done in a different vein, in a collaboration with the Muppets?
The Muppets.
Because in 1977 was a huge time for the Muppets. I'm not really into the whole scene. I kind of combine Muppet, like the Muppet Show and Sesame Street is all kind of one world to me.
Well, they are one world. So,
I know, but yeah. I know there are people
exist in the same.
There are people who kind of differentiate the two. I kind of keep them all together. And I was a little kid at that time, so it was kind of my thing. I mean, the Muppet Show was a big deal. And the cool thing about the Muppets and Sesame Street, just the brilliance of it, is that it was made for not just children, but also adults. Like, my father watched The Muppet Show with me and loved it. And there were many adults who were involved in The Muppet Show when they weren't involved in any other children's programming or child-focused entertainment. So I just got to thinking, what if Brian did a collaboration with the Muppets? And I even kind of took it out to it being not just an album, but a TV special.
Mm-hmm. It would have to be that.
Yeah, in 1977. So I wrote out some thoughts, and Sean and I discussed them, and then I passed it on to Carrie and asked for her input, because not only is Carrie a serious Beach Boys fan, but she's also a serious Muppets fan. So I knew she would have some interesting perspectives and maybe even thinking of things that I wouldn't have, been able to come up with.
And no pressure meant, but you're much more Muppet literate than we are. So.
I was going to say, I love that this is my resume. She knows about the Beach Boys and she knows about Muppets. And that's really what I bring to the table in any relationship.
I think that's a very honorable resume. So kind of the parameters that we set up for this is that this would be, again, thinking of something that would have been done in 1977. So we're talking about Muppet characters that would have been around at that time. So nothing like from the 80s, nothing from the Muppet movie, but just characters.
No Fraggles.
No Fraggles,
yeah. So
which broke my heart.
I know, but, well, also, I never, Fraggle Rock was a little bit after my time.
Right.
So
that's where the age difference shows
I never
up.
even watched that. I mean, I just knew about Fraggle Rock from the promos between movies on HBO. And also when it came to any humans involved, it was people who would have been on shows in 1977, because you had at that time so many different variety shows. And I mean, it was really kind of a cool time that you had many different types of programs that even actors and actresses or other performers who normally maybe stuck with very dramatic things, they could go on a variety show and let their hair down a little bit and do things that were unexpected. So I kind of kept it to people who would have been on this kind of show in 1977. So enough of a name that they would be recognized. Somebody they can put in the promos for the show who would be a big deal. So both people who are established and also really up and coming popular people.
I actually took mine a step further and I went only people who were on the Muppet Show and had proved that they could work with Muppets.
Interesting.
Because I wanted this to be good.
Okay.
That's another thing. We wanted to make sure we had something good to present, because I don't know if mine is valid or...
For my human stars, I didn't really look up to see... I think some of my people at least were involved with the Muppets, but if not, they were in other things that would have, and that'll become clear once we get into
enough.
Well, other kinds of fun programs. Let me just put out my list of the guest stars.
Oh, okay.
The human guest stars.
That's a good idea.
And there's other people that I refer to. These would just kind of be the core players who might be in little comedy sketches or something. I'm thinking Paul Williams.
That's a given.
Yeah.
Rita Moreno, especially because she did a lot of, she was on Electric Company. And
she was on the Muppet Show.
Was she really?
Yep.
Okay. And Ruth Buzzy.
Of course.
Gotta love Ruth Buzzy, who also did a lot of children's programs. I don't know if she was on the Muppet Show, but I wouldn't be surprised if she was.
I feel like she was, yeah.
Madeline Kahn.
Also on the Muppet Show. Also on Sesame Street.
And Steve Martin.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, I know he was in the Muppet movie later, but still.
And also on the show.
Oh, okay. I did not know. I really got to watch those old Muppet shows. I haven't seen them since they first aired.
Available on Disney Plus.
We did watch a few.
We watched a few, yeah.
Yeah.
Disney Plus isn't paying us for that promo, but if they want to...
You're right. Okay, so yeah, let's start with, because I just kind of went in order of the album.
And by the way, I brought us a couple of references, the album itself and the Endless Summer Quarterly edition from 2007, spring 2007, which focuses on that album.
Okay, side one begins with Let Us Go On This Way. I see that as performed by the Electric Mayhem.
Yes.
With Janice singing the bridge, and both Muppet and human stars singing on the harmonies.
I couldn't disagree with that. It just makes perfect sense.
It's exactly what I have. There's only one way to start it, and it's with the Electric Mayhem.
Oh, yeah.
And Janice on the bridge is just going to crush it.
Well, I think that was also a big part of me thinking Muppets, that Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem could really do a lot of this material justice, even more than the Beach Boys did.
Yes.
Because this album probably needs some justice. Roller Skating Child.
How do you make this song not creepy?
Well, first of all,
whatever do you mean, Carrie?
Yeah. Some lyrics would have to be changed here.
Like what? It's so cold I go burr. Yeah, that is kind of creepy.
Yeah, I would say change the lyrics to make it only about a child roller skating with no other subcontext or hidden whatever. I remember on the Beach Boys channel this past summer, they had some really good little audio clips from Carney Wilson. And Carney talked about this song and talked about how she really felt like what she and Wendy felt like this was written about them because they roller skated every day. And of course, a child at that time, I mean, Carney would have been about 10 or 9 or 10 years old. I mean, of course, a child is not going to get any other subcontext. So let's just make it about what Carney Wilson saw this song to be. And I kind of pictured, I know when I was little, there was a Muppet who was on Sesame Street, but also on a Colorform set that I had, and she had yellow braids.
Betty Lou.
Yeah, Betty Lou. Not Prairie.
Yes.
I thought it was
Prairie
Dawn.
She's got the page boy.
But
I looked
I looked it up, and yeah, her name is Betty Lou. She had the pink face and the yellow braids, which of course, when I was little, I was like, oh, that must be me because I have yellow hair too. So I picture Betty Lou with her braids with like ribbons in them, and she's just like roller skating around while the song is being performed. Oh, the song is sung by Scooter. Like just, he's singing it while she's skating around.
I can see him in the green jacket doing that. Well, it's just so clear.
Of course.
I thought about Scooter for this one too. And instead, I again decided make this as innocent and age appropriate. And who is the only age appropriate Muppet Show Muppet who can sing this? Robin.
Oh.
And also anytime you get Jerry Nelson singing his
song. Oh, yeah.
See, and that's why I'm glad you're here, because in discussing things, we tried to come up with as many different options, but we knew we would be forgetting some things. And Robin, because Robin was on the Muppet Show.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so that would have been appropriate for the time. Yeah, just the cute little frog.
And he's sitting off to the side, and I love the Betty Lou visual. I was picturing just kind of an anything Muppet, but Betty Lou in particular is a favorite of mine, so just skating around.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking just somebody who would have hair that would be in ribbons or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's in the lyric. Well, assuming that's not part of the lyrics you change, of course.
Yeah, ribbons are creepy.
Yeah.
Only bows.
Well, if you try hard enough, you can make anything creepy, especially when you're talking about the Beach Boys in the late 70s. So, okay. So next we have Mona, and all I have written for this is Cookie Monster, which I think you came up with, Sean.
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember because we did this so long ago, but you're probably right. I think it's not so much the topic, but Mona, come. That's so his style. That's his style.
And of course it could cross into cookie references.
Well, it would have to be. There would have to be some
the
kind
song
of
might
cookie
even
cookie.
The song might even just become about cookies and not about a woman.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe take out the reference to Be My Baby and Do Run Run and Phil Spector and put in some kind of cookie stuff there.
Now you're going to like those cookies. Well, I brought in our first human guest.
Ooh.
I was thinking not cookie, but similar, because I was going for Muppet Show Muppets. But then I thought, why not bring in a human? And you know who would be really fun on this and would rock it is Elton John.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm willing to stand up for that. I think he would be really fun for this song.
And he would be ideal for this kind of show.
And he was great when he was on The Muppet Show.
Yeah.
When he did Benny and the Jets with them. Like, that's an iconic image. Because he's one of those people who's basically a Muppet anyway. And I say this as someone
especially
who was a Muppet.
back then.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he could have been in the Electric Mayhem
Yeah,
with all the
no question about
rhinestones and satin and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I
the
like the idea of it being stripped down more to like piano, and it's got this good like driving rock and roll sound to it. I think it would be really cool and different than what's happening on the album.
Yeah, I like that. So Johnny Carson. Well, this is my first human star, where I just see Brian performing this at a big grand piano, and the Johnny Carson would be like various Muppets popping up from behind the piano.
Yeah, I feel like Muppets popping out and singing is like the underlying theme for mine. Like, I think it's a given. Anything that I say, the Muppets are popping out and going.
Especially like the little weird ones, like kind of spiky and strange.
Yeah, you can't have a Muppets thing without that. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. I brought in another human. I want Danny Kaye to sing it. I looked at this list of all the people who were on The Muppet Show, and I was like, who could do this and would be really interesting? Like, Danny Kaye could pull something this ridiculous off and make you believe it.
Would he be doing like fancy choreography
oh my God,
with it?
Of course.
Sean, didn't you say you wanted Johnny Carson himself involved?
I think I mentioned that.
I thought about that too.
I kind of thought about that because, like, I'm kind of on two sides about this. Because in a way, Johnny Carson, I mean, he was on different shit. Like, he was on Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In a lot. He did the little fun thing on the Mary Tyler Moore Show where he was in the dark and you couldn't see him. I mean, like, it's not like he was... I mean, he definitely was up for doing like fun little cameos, but at the same time, there was kind of a dark side to Johnny Carson where he wasn't always fun and he carried a gun and stuff like that.
And his goons threatened Tony Orlando. Yeah,
I'm sure they threatened a lot of people, and he wiped Joan Rivers off the face of the earth. And so I don't know. I mean, I would have liked to see him involved, but
I pictured him being there for like half a second.
Right.
Like maybe just coming in at the end and giving everybody a weird look or something and not even saying anything.
Something like that.
But also, like, when I would hear this song, I know we talked about this when I would listen to this song on the Beach Boys channel. I'd think to myself, okay, has Brian ever actually watched The Tonight Show? Because it's almost like, yes, the song could be about Johnny Carson, but it also could be about Dick Cavett. Like, it's almost like it doesn't feel like, except for the reference to Ed McMahon.
That's the only thing that makes it
feels
specific.
like it really has nothing to do with Johnny Carson at all.
You almost want to think that maybe they did that on purpose so that if he was going to promote this somewhere, he could change it and drop in like different
kind of like my thought about Salt Lake City, that the Beach Boys...
that's my thought too.
The Beach Boys eventually would have done like the same backing track about every like major city.
Like High School USA was like that.
Portland, Oregon will be coming soon. I don't know. It could go either way with actually having real John, or we could, of course, they could have had like a Johnny Carson-esque Muppet.
Oh, that too.
Yes. That could have had that too.
Yes. I
don't know. So, Good Time. Now, this is another one where we'd have to clean up the lyrics a little bit.
Yes.
I mean, Good Time it's more sexy, innocent sort of way.
It's a little less creepy than Roller Skating Child.
It's definitely, I mean, it's definitely not creepy. I don't think it's creepy at all, especially when you consider that when Brian recorded this song, which would have been in 1970, he was much better kept and pretty darn good looking at that time, as opposed to being all fat and hairy chested.
By the time they did the Beach Boys Love You, slimmed down, but
but he still,
he wasn't real skinny, but you know,
but you know, he still had, and he had that beard and stuff. You know, just he still looked like somebody who would try to lure people into a van with candy. But 1970, it was a little more innocent, but still the lyrics aren't necessarily child friendly. Because
you'll do the dirty boogie.
Do you really want like a small child saying, "What are falsies?"
Exactly.
It's about a woman who wore fake breasts.
Carrie, do your preschool student voice.
Waterfall seas.
Yeah. So we would have to clean up the lyrics a little bit, but I see Gonzo and his chickens.
Yes, Gonzo and Camilla, 100% what I have. Camilla sings. Bark, 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 bark.
And maybe that's how we can get around some of the
Oh, that's true.
inappropriate lyrics.
That's a good way to cover it up.
Just have them chicken sung. But yeah, Gonzo.
They did this a similar thing when the Chipmunks did songs that were otherwise inappropriate. They'd kind of cover it up with other things.
Yeah.
Rather than change the lyrics.
What inappropriate songs did the Chipmunks do?
Good Girls Don't, for one thing. Well, I think they just skipped the dirty verse on that.
Oh, my.
In Lukenbach, Texas, in Waylon Jennings' recording, I think in the intro, they mentioned something about
that make it worth living. There's guitars, the tunes, and food, and Santa Claus, and birthday parties, and roller skates, and movies, and popcorn. Hold it! We don't need our names in the marquee line.
Dave Seville gets a little blue. So, honking down the highway, that's another mainly Brian Lung. Brian
Lung.
That's mainly a Brian song, but with Fozzie in the Studebaker.
Yes, I love that idea.
With like a very obvious filmed background, like where they're sitting in, and they could even at the end, the camera pulls away and you see that they're just in like the fake front seat with the screen in the background.
All right, so you were talking about having it projected.
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking even cheaper. Like I know there was one Sesame Street thing where I could, even as a little kid, I could tell that it was just like two giant rollers with like trees painted on it and they were spinning around to give the illusion of movement.
Now I'm thinking like how they would do it in the movies.
Okay.
But they're
I think that'd make more sense.
But they're in the Studebaker. Fozzie would probably be driving since the Studebaker is his uncle's car. His uncle who's hibernating.
Yep.
Even though we don't know that until the Muppet movie, but still.
Spoiler, come on.
Because especially, you got to have gosh darn in there.
It's crucial.
Yes.
Although I really hate to have anybody but Al Jardine sing that line.
Yeah, I've got a good...
darn is such an Al Jardine.
It's super Al, but I think I've got a solution.
Oh?
I love the Fozzie idea. I did not give Fozzie anything to do because I couldn't find anything that was perfect for him. And that makes me sad. But okay, have you ever seen any of the medleys that Julie Andrews and Carol Burnett did of popular songs?
I did not.
I think I have.
I may have shown them to you. I may have linked them on Facebook. They are amazing and the most phenomenally
from their variety
uncool
specials,
yes,
right?
Yes, just profoundly uncool, just like Al Jardine himself. God bless him. And so I'm picturing them, Julie and Carol, doing this as a duet. As they're going to pull off Gosh Darn Highway like nobody's business.
Okay.
So look up, there's 60s medley, there's a 70s medley, there's also a rap they did in the 80s or 90s about like being parents.
Oh my God.
The world's too much and the brain's too full, and you had enough to hear with the hype and the bull. What do? What the kids do is rap to a rhythmic beat.
We're the moms, and we're here to say.
No.
Yeah,
Do they think big brains are awesome?
Big brains are awesome, dude.
Oh my. Okay, that would work though.
Oh man.
That would very work. And they would definitely call out the gosh darn.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm picturing them in matching jumpsuits.
Oh, of course.
And I keep
this is
picturing them
1977.
roller skating for no good reason other than I want them like moving like.
Or kind of like you're wearing roller skates, but you're more marching than skating.
Yes, the marching roller skating.
Yes. And with the jumpsuits would be like the gaucho pants that ended like right below the knee, and you'd wear oh yeah. There's a whole picture coming into focus here. Oh. Like very, very Brady Bunch variety show.
Yes.
Yes.
I considered first Brady's, Partridge,
Oh God.
Osmonds, and then I went, no, Julie and Carol.
Yeah. Okay, so Ding Dang.
Yeah, this was totally mine here.
Yes, why
Ding
don't-
Dang, and I have my foot down on this. We're going to reach into the Sesame Street side of the Muppets and bring out the Zizzy Zoomers.
Yes.
Zoom, zoom, zigzag, zap.
Yeah, it's got to be something totally bonkers.
Yeah, mine just says all Muppets, just like the weirdest Muppets you can find, bouncing all over the place. Ding, dang, dang, dang.
Oh, what about those yip, 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 yip Muppets?
I was thinking the Yip Yips. I was thinking any kind of weird Muppet that they might have just lying in the back.
Ones they made out of spare parts and
Yeah,
stuff.
like we'll use this someday, but I don't know what for.
And
Or
like
maybe
they're
the
just
SNL Muppets?
and they're just like throwing them or something.
Yeah, exactly. They're just flying up in the air.
Oh, and you know what? I just thought of this now. They could bring in, like, they could have a brief cameo from the Mana Mana.
I was thinking about them too.
Like, they could just kind of jump in and go, Mana Mana, and then, like, leave. Yeah. Okay. I like
Animal
that.
would be all over that, I think.
Well, Animal does show up.
Animal has
Later.
something special to do for me too.
Okay. So now, side 2, we start with solar system. And this would be Ernie with a telescope. And he's basically teaching Bart. Bert.
Bert?
Bert.
Bert?
Bart. Bart. He's Ernie with a telescope is teaching Bert about the solar system. I think that was your idea.
Was it?
I think so.
I don't remember I'll take credit for it if people like it. I mean, what else? What else can I say? The only thing is, if you really pay attention to the lyrics, some of the lyrics are not quite accurate, or they're a little bit too specific. Like, the constellations are stars that form animals. Okay, Libra. What animal is that?
Okay.
There was a meme the other day that. Can I talk about fursonas on this podcast?
Talk about what?
Fursonas. If you were a furry, this would be your fursona.
Oh,
Oh my
okay.
God.
Okay, so there was a meme that was like your Chinese zodiac sign and your sun sign are your fursona, and this does not work for me because I am a Libra, so I am a horse scale, and that's not sexy at all.
Oh, good grief. Well, speaking of which, might as well mention there's an Instagram account of Beach Boys memes called What Do the Planets Meme?
Yes, it's good.
We'll link it in the show notes.
But do you really look upon Ernie to be completely scientifically
Well,
accurate?
That's
Bert would
true.
be correcting him.
He probably
Bert would be
would be,
reading
yeah.
from an
Maybe that
astronomy
could
book
be-
and going like,
Okay,
exactly,
so maybe
that's part
that
of
would
it.
be part of it then.
Yeah,
like,
Ernie's trying to teach him. And
Ernie, that goes outside of the solar system.
I have a bunch of singing planet Muppets to sing the solar system part, and the cast of Pigs in Space, because we haven't gone yet to any of the like regular features on the Muppet
Right.
Show. So, and also
see, I
because
totally
Miss
did
Piggy
not think
hasn't
of that.
shown up by this point, you know she's going to like try and get in at some point. I have her doing something else too.
Yeah.
You cannot avoid that.
I know.
But yeah.
That's very, of course, smack myself in the head.
All right, The Night Was So Young, Dr. Benson Honeydew and Beaker.
Now, that was all you. Do you remember what made you come up with that?
I think just kind of the mellowness of the song, and then with like the higher harmony part, like Beaker would be like bee 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 bee. Like he would just sing it in his Beaker way. But also I love those two characters, so they had to be there somehow.
I brought in another person because I always think the vocal sounds a little Carol Channing-esque, and I love Carol
Oh.
Channing.
Why didn't we think of adding Carol Channing?
I
to that?
always
That's
think
so
about Carol
obvious.
Channing, which reminded me that I want to make sure that if we have not shown you guys the movie Skidoo, that we
Oh,
do
boy.
someday.
Oh my.
Just say Carol Channing in a bikini.
Oh God, who did I know who saw Carol Channing outside a Broadway theater?
We did.
Was that?
Did you?
Wait,
Yes,
was that
we
us?
stepped outside of Junior's in Times Square, and she
Oh,
was
that's
being
right.
interviewed. I have a picture of her
Okay.
from
Oh,
that.
that's amazing.
And she was like 105 years old, but
She's
she was
always
still
been
in a
105
show.
years
She
old.
seriously
she was
looked great. I'll
she
tell
was
you.
in a show
Yeah.
at
That's
that
so cool.
time.
Yeah, I think it was right outside the Schubert.
Well, yeah, because the Schubert is right next to Junior's.
Yeah.
So you can always see stuff there. All right. I'll bet he's nice.
Before we go on, I just want to say everybody thinks about The Beach Boys Love You. The one beautiful song off that is The Night Was So Young. For me, it's I'll Bet He's Nice. Take away the weird synthy production of it, that's a freaking gorgeous
is.
song.
It is a beautiful
oh
song.
My
It is
God.
nice, and to me, it sounds like there's things about it that sound kind of throwback to like Smile era. I mean, I'm not saying it would have belonged on Smile,
Right.
but there's some things about it that kind of are not very 1977. And this might have been just one of those things where Brian did reach back into the archives either of actual recorded stuff or in his brain. It might actually date back that, and just
You never
nobody
know.
knows it because it was never done before or written down or anything. But I don't remember if you or I came up with this, but this is done by Sweetums with the Swedish chef singing Carl's part.
I think that part was mine.
Yes,
I think.
it was.
Yes. That would work. That would work so well.
Bork, bork, bork.
God, Jim Henson's looking down on us or up at us. I don't know. He might have been evil. We don't know. And thinking, my God, why didn't I think of that?
Exactly.
But yeah, just this very large, hairy thing. Oh, bet he's nice.
I do have Sweetums coming in later.
Ooh, good.
I wanted some like repressed rage for this song. I thought, who can do that really well? And I went for a human. Steve Martin hasn't
Oh, yeah.
hasn't shown up yet, and I think he could do the repressed rage. And
Would he be all sarcastic and Steve?
exactly, sarcastic
course.
Steve Martin.
Yeah.
Oh, bet he's nice. Oh, it'd be so good.
Yes, I agree with that. All right, let's put our hearts together.
Oh,
now,
yes.
here's where we bring in Kermit and Miss Piggy.
Yes.
Well, Miss Piggy sings Brian's part because there's more to it, and she's too much of a diva to
Yep.
sing only a few lines.
Yep.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
And of course, when you think about the part that Marilyn sings, you could totally see Kermit doing that because he
Yes.
knows that Miss Piggy is the boss.
Yeah.
Period. A million people are in the room. Miss Piggy's the boss.
I
Yeah.
like the Miss Piggy and Kermit idea. I always enjoyed when there was a human guest on the Muppet Show and Miss Piggy like started to fall in love with them a little bit. And I was like, who's a good crooner who could do this and was also like amazingly kitschy and like really brought the weird in his own specials? And Andy Williams. Watch his
okay.
Christmas special sometime.
okay, yeah, that would definitely work. All right, now I want to pick you up. And this is also, when you kind of think of the whole, I don't even know if this was something that was ever done on the Muppet Show. It was kind of a Sesame Street thing, but also thinking how this was done on Saturday Night Live. Just have like a film montage of babies.
Yes.
And I put, in this context, the song is totally about babies and nothing else. and I think this is also another song that Carney Wilson felt that was about like her and Wendy. So yeah, it's only about babies. It's not about wanting to treat a grown woman like she's a baby, which is really, really weird. But yeah, just kind of like thinking like the Albert Brooks kind of films from SNL. Just like a really cute montage of all different babies, all different colors, playing in a pool and crawling and taking naps and eating food and getting it all over themselves. Just like a really cute baby montage.
Well, who would be singing it? Or would it be just one of those generic, nameless?
It would be Joe Raposo or someone.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking just the actual track,
Oh, okay.
the actual
With
track.
Dennis and everything. Okay.
Yeah, like the actual album track would be over the film montage. Or
That could work.
it could be like, again, Brian at the grand piano performing it live to like a projected film. It
Ooh,
could
with
be
Carney and Wendy sitting by him, looking adoringly up at their dad.
Aww.
I went full on creepy and weird. But which Muppet was Brian the most like at this time? Of course, it was Sweetums.
Yeah.
And I always think of Sweetums with this song. And I love the Sweetums Robin dynamic. And I was kind of picturing Sweetums and someone small like Robin. And he's like, I love to take care of you. And Robin's like, ah.
Okay, that I can see
that
that.
so works.
That's a good little alternate way of looking at that. All right, Airplane. Grover with the electric mayhem at the end. And Suzanne Summers is the girl sitting with Grover. Because you gotta have Grover.
That is a pairing I never thought.
I remember when we first discussed this, I was considering going so far as to say Super Grover, but that would kind of go way beyond the context unless you change the song completely.
Now, Super Grover wouldn't be in an airplane. Super Grover knows how to fly.
Exactly, yeah.
Sort of. I realized that I hadn't give Kermit anything to do, so I gave it to Kermit for no good reason other than Kermit. This is a song that I have no feelings about. And I realized that while I was listening to the album the other day, like, I have nothing about this. I'd much rather hear Santa's Got an Airplane. If we want to talk about airplanes, let's talk about the one Santa has.
The thing is, to me, airplane sounds a little bit businessy. Not so much business, but I'm flying and I have a specific purpose. Kermit would fit perfectly with that. Kermit's very businesslike.
Kermit's got a lot to do. He's got places to go.
Yeah.
By the way, I got to throw this shout out here. Want to hear a good version of Airplane? Jack Madani's version that he did on, I think, Net Sounds 2. All instrumental, very Wrecking Crew-y, and it sounds really good.
Yeah, that was definitely something people talked about at the time.
Yeah. Oh my God, we're at the end
Yeah,
already.
The last one, and I'm guessing that we're
14
going to have the
songs, too.
same thought.
So, Love is a Woman. I see this as kind of, it's the last song. It's like the end of the night, the end of the show. Rolf is singing it at a piano in like a bar set. Brian sings on the bridge. So it's like late at night at a bar. There's only a few patrons left. Brian is either like the janitor or the busboy or maybe even the bartender who's starting to clean up. So like he sings along like while he's working. And this was yours. The Count does a cameo for the number part.
1, 2, 3.
And then at the end, Animal chases Suzanne Summers across the scene yelling, "Woman!
Woman!" And by the way, this is where I think Paul Williams needs to make an appearance. Like, even if he doesn't do anything, he's just kind of in the background or maybe also playing a piano.
Well, or he could be the bartender.
Yeah, kind of
maybe.
like,
like in the El Suizo.
foreshadowing the Muppet
Oh, no,
movie.
he wasn't the bartender in the El Suizo. Jim Frawley was, right?
I don't remember.
Because Paul Williams
I've
was
seen
the
that
piano
movie many
player.
times, but I can't remember that
Yeah,
level
Paul
of
Williams
detail.
was the piano player, wasn't he? When
I'm thinking
Fozzie
he
was
was.
singing.
Yeah, I want to say that's right.
And Jim Frawley was the one who said, "Oh, drinks are on the house." And they all went up to the roof because he knew that they would do that.
I feel bad now that I didn't put Ralph in anything because he is one of my favorite Muppets. When I was a toddler, I used to play that I was Ralph and I would bang because, he just had the pause. So the piano goes like this, bum, 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 with your hands flying up and down the air. I realize that podcasting is not a visual medium. So I will describe the hands flailing up in the air and bum, bum. But I just gave it straight up to Animal. I figure he gets about 4 bars in, and then curtain falls down or someone pulls him off the stage with a cane, or something falls on his head and he ends because he, love is a woman, 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 and then he's done.
So he doesn't finish the song?
Oh, I don't think he finishes the song.
Oh, wow. So basically, we only have a short bit of Love is a Woman then? Oh, man. Now, here's where I had to come in and come up with my own little addition here. To me, I think this works well, like with our idea having a closing bar and everything. But since this is a TV special, you have to bring everybody back. Everybody who was a guest comes back and does a big group sing-along, a reprise of Ding Dang.
I was about to say that. Yes, yes.
And one of the reasons that I have an excuse. The cassette version of the Beach Boys' Love You has Ding Dang moved to the end of side 2.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah. And when I first heard the Beach Boys' Love You, and I really paid attention to it in 1994, it was from a library copy on cassette. And that's how it was arranged. So that's kind of what sticks out. It still seems weird to me, all these years later, listening to the actual lineup and hearing Ding Dang in the middle of the album. What? No, this comes later.
Did we even talk about that? Like kind of the big final number
I don't think we did, which is why I'm kind of bringing it up now.
Okay.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's the perfect way to end it.
Wow. Good Lord, we're already done. I didn't think we'd be done this quick with 3 people going over 14 songs, but here we are.
Apparently, we're very efficient.
Yeah.
We put thought into this. Unlike a lot of things that the Beach Boys do.
Oh, come on. The Beach Boys do, like how they were so thankful. The inner sleeve, you got a picture of Brian and Marilyn. Brian removing something. You see like a little black marker drawn over it. Obviously, he's pulling a cigarette out. We know that for a fact because there's another picture from the same photo shoot when he's holding a pack of cigarettes. To Brian, whom we love with all our hearts, we wish to express our appreciation and acknowledge your willingness to create and support totally the completion of these songs. We thank you for sharing yourself and your music with us, and all those who love you as well. An unspeakable joy being with you in your expression of the music you put out there for everyone. Brian, we feel honored and grateful, and we love you. Carl, Dennis, Michael, and Alan.
Oh, good Lord.
I'm sure they were sincere. There's no reason not to be.
What sick leprechaun wrote that? I mean,
That always gave me such Shags vibes.
And for some reason, this was in my copy too, and I have no idea what it is.
okay.
I got it home from the store in the 90s, and I was like, what the heck is it? It's just, Rick Micka arrested for speeding. It's this little
looks like
novelty
it's-
newspaper
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So, Rick, if you wondered whatever happened to that thing, we have it here at 2NX headquarters.
Taking good care of it.
Yeah.
It's more like that thing on the inner sleeve is like, Brian, please don't crack up again and
Right.
go and stay in your bed and not bathe for 3 years. Please, pretty please.
Yeah, and when I first saw that, I was still of the mind of, oh, Dr. Landy is wonderful. He saved Brian's life, and he's why Brian sounds so good on Good Time on this. And all this. So this, I was like, oh, you guys, and I had just read, wouldn't it be nice if it were my own story? And I'm like, God, these guys are such hypocrites. And now it's like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, us naive youngsters.
Yeah. Well, okay, by the time they did this, was Landy already kicked to the curb?
He had just been kicked to the curb.
Okay. So he didn't have any involvement with Love You or...
I think a lot of the songs came from the sessions that he did with Landy. Like when Landy would say, okay, I need you to write some songs every day, just about anything. Just
Yeah, well, there's a lot of songs that are about
seriously,
anything.
like Mona, Airplane, probably Johnny Carson.
This feels, in a lot of ways, like a February album writing month project or a national solo album writing month project.
Yeah, where you just write about anything. And
your goal is
see
like,
what
I'll have
sticks.
this many songs, I'll have 14 songs, or which I think is actually the goal for February album writing month. I think it is like, you have 14 songs. Okay, I'll do it. One day it's going to be about ding dang. Okay. And you're always like, well, the next day will be better. And it never is. And that's why I don't do those months anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, any of those kind of writing or like, what's the thing, the cutesy name for November?
NaNoWriMo.
What does that stand for?
It's National Novel Writing Month.
Okay. And there's like another thing too, where it's like, oh, you write this every day and by the end of the month, you'll have a thing. And it's like, that's not how writing works.
I did, my novel did start as a National Novel Writing Month project.
And what novel would that be?
That would be my novel Forward March. Funny you should have mentioned it.
Yay.
It's available wherever you would like to buy a book. But it did start
Link in the show notes.
as a NaNoWriMo project, but it took like 9 years
it took like
to make it an
took
actual
like
book
9
instead of just a
Novembers.
bunch of words.
It took 9 Novembers and many other months. But that's how it is. Like you can't just say, I'm going to write a song a day and then I'll have 30 songs and that'll be like, out of like 30 songs, you might only use 5 of them. Like, or it's just like you write 30 of anything or, you write every day. Some of it's going to be trash.
Oh, hey, there's that immersion society. I forgot the real name of it, where they lock themselves in a room for like 10 hours and write something like 10 songs, and then they present them at a meeting at the end of the day.
That
So,
sounds terrifying.
yeah.
Yeah. Because it's like, you just can't put yourself under that kind of, I mean, maybe just as an exercise, but I don't think that's very productive as a practice. I mean, like, I could see if Landy was getting at it to just get Brian into some type of work mode every day as just like a form of discipline when he hadn't been doing that for so long, you know, or maybe even like giving him a reason to get out of bed. Like, you need to do a song a day or whatever, but not counting, you know, not really saying every song is going to be brilliant and we're going to release it, but just more to get him into a work mode again. I mean, I don't know what Brian's work ethic was like in the 60s, but I mean, he was composing stuff all the time. Maybe not necessarily every single day, but I mean, he had a work ethic and he was doing stuff. So I think Landy was probably just trying to get him back into that zone, or maybe just writing every day would spark him and inspire him. But yeah, it's still going to turn out a lot of crap.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, this could have been something.
It really could have been. I mean, especially because when you think about it, Carl is listed as the mixed down producer, and he explained why he was credited as mixed down producer. Because when Brian finished everything up, mixed everything down, Carl's like, this is not finished. So he had to come in and overdub some more guitar to make it a little bit more beefy. He supposedly came up with the ending of Airplane, which I can kind of believe. I can kind of believe that they did that and then chopped it, pasted it on later. There we go.
Yes.
Talking is hard. But I don't care. I love the Beach Boys Love You. It is one of my top five. I am dead serious. It is one of my top 5 Beach Boys albums. And it's not something I would recommend. If I had asked this recently in the 2Next group and other forums, if somebody came up to you and said, I'm curious, I'd like to listen to a non-compilation, non-concert Beach Boys album, what would you recommend? I would definitely not recommend the Beach Boys Love You.
I would, depending on the person. If it's a person
Good
that I know
point.
is like, you know, they've got their Shags records and their outsider
Yeah,
art collections,
okay.
and they're like, if you like the
you like the
weird
Shags,
stuff,
yeah.
oh man, are you gonna love this? I kind of mumbled earlier, like my husband and I kind of you know, the Shags say, like, the Shags love you and love to perform for you. And it always makes us think of Brian Loves You. And that, like,
Interesting.
Brian, we love you so much. And please never, ever go away again. Because you are so great. And there's that, like, you feel like there's a gun to the person's back as they're saying, like, the Shags love you. And the Shags are like, yes, we do.
Well, it's just like with any Beach Boys kind of thing. There's levels. And
Oh, yeah.
So
I mean,
many.
it's like when we put together a playlist for somebody who maybe just had like a passing interest in the Beach Boys, what would you do? And it's
Ooh, I've
like,
got those.
and kind of in thinking about that, it's like, okay, I really love this song, but is it going to frighten this person? Like, is this accessible? And it's like when you think about the many missteps of the Beach Boys and bad decisions, it's like when they had 15 Big Ones, and I'm not saying 15 Big Ones is a brilliant album, but it was a huge hit, and it was an album that brought people into, maybe even outside the album, the Beach Boys definitely commanded an audience during 1976, part of the whole bicentennial thing and summer, and people just kind of shaking off the early 70s and all the muck of Vietnam and Nixon and all this stuff, and just kind of saying, hey, we just want to have fun for a little while, which was great, and it worked. Love You was not the album to follow that up with, like, because they kind of had people, and then I think a lot of them got scared away.
Which is one reason it's not hard to find this album in a used
God,
record
no.
store.
No, it is
Yeah,
not.
I believe I have several copies of it.
And I don't know what would have been the right thing for them to do. Maybe something more along the lines of like Holland. I mean, Holland isn't sun and fun and whatever, but the sound of it is still very accessible. And again, I wouldn't put Holland out in 1977, but I'm saying for 1973 to have a song about Zodiac stuff and not Feel Flows, that was on A Surf's Up, but like the songs are very accessible. And I think they kind of lost that putting Brian in charge was probably not the best idea.
Well, let me ask you this. What if this album came out, but with real instruments, with full participation from the band instead of just Brian using synths?
Well, I mean, it would have been better to have had a more band participatory project than to just be Brian.
It would have sounded more accessible, even if it was still weird as anything.
Because Brian only makes songs for Brian.
That's true.
And I mean, when Brian made Pet Sounds fortunately was accessible. But Brian only makes songs for Brian. So in 1977, he really was only going to make songs for Brian.
And also his songs to get Landy off his back.
Well, yeah. But also in like 15 Big Ones was also Brian making songs for Brian, but he had more involvement from, like, say, Carl. Maybe also Brian was kind of in this little 1950s bend, which worked perfectly for 1976. So it's almost like the stars aligned. And what Brian liked at the time happened to work. But in 1977, it would have been better to have kind of more Carl involvement.
And more Muppet involvement.
Yes.
More involvement by anybody instead of just letting Brian be Brian.
But letting Brian be Brian brings you something that is very authentically Brian, and that is the charm of the record.
Exactly. You're not lying there. This is the most Brian you will ever get.
You have to be prepared for Brian.
Yes.
I mean, it's just like how I've seen some discussions in various places about like Brian's book versus Mike's book.
Right.
And by Brian's book, I mean I Am Brian Wilson, not wouldn't it be nice if it were my own story?
You mean the book, Here is What I Like About My Chair.
Yes.
I actually saw somebody argue that Brian obviously had nothing to do with I Am Brian Wilson. And it's like, are you kidding me? Who else would write about watching Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune and and how much he loves his chair and
I know.
And yelling at was it Delaney who left her suitcases on the front lawn.
Yeah.
And going on for 10 pages about Rosemary Clooney. That is so very, very Brian.
It's authentic Brian.
But you have to be prepared for that. You have to be ready for Brian. Like if you want a more straightforward memoir, you got to read Mike's book, which does read like an actual narrative and not just a bunch of random crazy things.
Like it's not modular.
Yeah. Or it's like, it's not like somebody running after Brian with a tape recorder and then like typing it all out and going, what the hell am I going to do with this? I just picture Melinda saying, just put out exactly what he says. just don't argue with it. Just record
transcribe
everything and transcribe it. Trust me, it'll be fine. Maybe edit out some curse words and that's about it.
Just some of them.
Yeah, like you got to leave in a few.
Anyway, I think we're done, are we?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to call it done unless either of you have any objection to that.
I have zero objections.
Okay. On that case, Carrie, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you
is there
so
anything
much.
you'd like to plug? I mean, you're in, what 8 different bands and you have all kinds of projects going on?
Approximately 5,000 things going on. But people can find me on Facebook at Carrie Ann Farrell. That's Carrie, CarrieAnnEFarrell, because all of my names have to be hard to spell. But you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Bandcamp, all kinds of places just by searching my name and find my music and find out what's happening next and find my book and all the other things that I do.
Yeah, try not to be in a happy mood after hearing Angelica Awake.
Oh, thank you. That's from my band Danger Noodle.
All right. And Lisa, do you have any projects you want to...
Oh, I'm knitting a sweater.
And we'll put a link to that in the show notes.
But that's not, you can't put a sweater on Bandcamp.
Yeah, wait, the hosts can't promote themselves, I don't think. So yeah we'll cut that out. All right. Anyway, that was Lisa, Carrie, and Sean, and bye.
Thank you for listening to the Tune X podcast. please leave us a review at Apple Podcasts or iTunes.
You can hear us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Amazon, Google Podcasts, and just about every other provider out there. If TuneX isn't on your favorite provider, please let us know.
You can email us at tunexpodcast@gmail.com. Our website, which includes the show notes, is tunex.fab4it.com. Fab4it is spelled F-A-B, then the number 4, then I-T.
Feel free to connect with us on social media. TuneX is on Facebook, and we're also on Instagram and Twitter, both under the handle of TuneX Podcast.
Our opening and closing theme, Melody 10, was written and performed by Scattered Frog. All other music and sounds used in this episode remain the properties of their respective copyright holders and are used for the purposes of commentary and review. No infringement is intended.
We'll see you next time, friends. Until then, don't back down from that wave.